Oh my god, it's like another webcam video with the fan blowing in my face and all this stupid stuff. And yeah, I understand. I get it. Can I just be like a professional already and just like use my actual camera? No, because I want to get this off my chest. I've been thinking about making this video for a while in some capacity. I'm gonna tilt it down a little bit. Oop. I've been thinking about making this video for a while in some type of way, and today I really started to think about it, and I just cannot get these thoughts like to leave my brain. And so I'm like, you know what? I'm not going to take the time to set up my camera, make sure it's charged, all that good stuff. I need to get this off of my chest like now, as soon as possible. I just need to do this. And so whenever you see a video with my webcam like this, it kind of is that candid, like, I need to get this off my chest right now. I can't go through the trouble of setting up an actual camera, so that's what this is. Hello, welcome. I'm a mess. But, oh god. So if you saw the title of this video, it's a lot to unpack, I know. And, I think this is, like, the third video that I've made about this subject in my life. I do not want to make a whole lot of videos about it because I think it is an important thing to talk about, and I think it's an important thing for me to raise awareness about and to keep telling my story, but I also don't want it to look like I'm profiting off of it or like I'm trying to build my brand on it, because that's just gross. That's like not what I want to do at all. I want to tell my story because I want people to understand where I'm coming from, and I want to raise awareness for other people and help other people, not because I want views or because I want to like garner a ton of success or profit off of it. Like that's just, no, that's not me. And unfortunately, however, it is some people like Logan Paul. It's great. So I'm not going to really talk about my actual story here. Excuse me, I'm trying to film. I'm too kind of drained to really even get into that, and it is hard for me to get into if I'm not like mentally in the right state for it, because it's still something I'm still trying to resolve. So if you want to know my story, you can go look up my other videos. But for this specifically right here, I just want to talk about how it applies to the Logan Paul situation and how it has affected my opinion of him so much, based on my own personal experiences. Obviously, you don't have to have experienced anything like this to know that what Logan has been doing is wrong. Like, that's just an objective fact. But when you do go through something like this, it just makes it that much worse, I guess. And I got so heated. At my office job, I'm allowed to like watch YouTube and Netflix on my computer while I work, and I was watching Philip DeFranco today and saw him cover the Casey Neistat interview that Logan Paul did, and I just got so heated. And then earlier today I was watching Pew News, Pew Pew, and I was watching PewDiePie cover it, and I got even more angry, and I've been angry ever since. Like, I'm just angry at him, and I don't even know him. And I'm a Pisces, so if you I tend to be a generally very kind person, or I try to be. I try to be somebody who gives everybody the benefit of the doubt, and I don't ever like saying that I hate anyone. That's just not cool in my book. But it's really hard not to hate Logan right now. Like, it's really hard. Casey asked Logan in his interview about the suicide PSA that Logan put up and said that he really liked that video. I'm going to, full disclosure, say that I also really liked that video. However, here's what still rubs me the wrong way about it. When Casey Neistat addressed that video and said, like, hey, this is a really cool video, and I think it's done a lot of good, do you think that changes your perception on whether you should be a YouTuber for sensationalism, or if you should be a YouTuber who genuinely helps people? Does that change your perception of how you should use your outreach and your influence? And Logan Paul's, the first thing out of his mouth was, well, that's the most viewed PSA about suicide prevention on YouTube. There's your answer right there. It doesn't matter what else he gets into. The fact that that's the first thing his mind goes to, that's your answer. He doesn't care. He doesn't care. I think part of him did that video because he wanted to learn and he wanted to know, and I liked seeing parts of the video where he was genuinely floored by the things he learned. And I liked seeing, I cannot remember his name for the life of me, but that suicide attempt survivor who I've seen many interviews with, who inspires me a lot. When he talked to Logan, he was so serious with him. He was so point blank with Logan and almost like mean, which he needed to be. And you can see in that video that Logan's just like floored by what he's hearing from this guy. And so you can tell that, like, sure, there was some desire to learn, but I think what trumped his desire to learn was his desire to be famous again. And that is proven over and over again by every other interview he's done since that, and by this Casey Neistat interview that we have now, and by the documentary that he's filming. Which I got so unreasonably angry about when I heard it. I'm like, I've never met this guy, like, it doesn't affect me in any way, but maybe it does, you know? He's making a documentary on his redemption arc, which, by the way, he hasn't done anything to redeem himself yet, and he even admitted that himself in the interview with Casey Neistat. So, you can't make a documentary about something that hasn't happened yet, Logan. And also, this just seems like a giant PR move. This doesn't seem like him objectively looking through some lens and being like, something about my character needs to change if I want to get better, if I want my reputation to get better. It doesn't seem like that at all. What it seems like is he is saying, I need to do something that will be extremely sensational and really cool in order to get my status and my clout up again. Like, that's what this is to me. The fact that it's a documentary about himself and not about, like, the suicide forest or suicide in general, like, that speaks volumes, that he is only concerned about himself and his own reputation. Logan isn't sorry because he offended literally everyone and did a horrible thing and took something like suicide for granted. He's sorry because it made him less famous. And all of his actions since that just unspeakable act prove that. And I don't think I need to go into detail. I think we all know. You know, I think it's kind of common knowledge at this point. But I just want to give you the scoop on, like, this whole situation from my perspective, what it's been like watching this unfold as somebody who survived a suicide attempt, especially as somebody who tried to kill herself a week after Logan's video went up, which, by the way, might I add, was pure coincidence. Like, I never watch Logan Paul just because hate is a strong word and I will never use it. Let's pull that back really quick. I don't hate Logan and Jake Paul. I hate the content they produce. I hate the people they present themselves to be. And I strongly dislike them, and I just don't want to support them while they are in this place. I think they're both young, and I think they're both stupid. Obviously, I'm the same age as Logan, and so I understand that, you know, your age isn't necessarily the ultimate signifier of how knowledgeable you are on subjects and things like that, you know. Logan's 22 and I'm 22, and I've already been through multiple suicide attempts, self-harm, mental illness, all kinds of traumatizing stuff. And so I have a perception of the world I think that Logan doesn't have, and age doesn't have anything to do with it. So I don't want to sit here and use the fact that he's 22 as an excuse, because clearly it's not. But I think that when you're 22 and you're not exposed to anything but the kind of privilege that he's enjoyed, the kind of popularity that he's come to receive, when that's literally the biggest thing in your life that you've experienced at 22 when your brain's not fully developed yet, it's going to skew your worldview. It's going to make you slightly narcissistic. It's going to make you a little bit insensitive. It just is naturally the thing that's going to happen, you know, and it's so frustrating. It's so frustrating. And so it makes sense that Logan and Jake act this way because of how they were raised, because of the kind of perfect world they grew up in. I'm not saying it's perfect, I don't know their whole lives, but I know that it's definitely not anything super challenging, and I know that, like, they've enjoyed their lives and they're super privileged and everything's always come relatively easy to them, and that because of that kind of popularity and that kind of ease through life, it's sort of skewed their worldview at this very young, impressionable age that they are. And I think that as they get older, if they can be more exposed to more serious things in life, they will be capable of learning and growing from these things. And I want to believe that so much, but I also look at somebody like their dad, and I think, oh, like, as long as he's at the helm, as long as he's their example of what a grown man should be, they're not going to learn anything, you know? And so I think everyone is capable of learning. My point is that I think everyone is capable of learning. Everyone is capable of sitting down and having a conversation and being swayed no matter what. It's just whether or not the person is willing to let that part of them be opened up. And I think that is Logan's main problem, is that he doesn't allow himself to feel feelings because it distracts him from the things that are fun and sensational and cool. And the things we should focus on in life are the things that are fun and the things that are exciting and the things that are sensational and not the things that are hard or emotional, right? So even if he has learned from this, even if he does understand the severity of what he did, he'll never admit it because it's not fun to admit stuff like that, right? And that's what aggravates me, is that I have been forced to learn from the things that have happened in my life. I've been forced into a situation that should be beyond human experience and shouldn't, in a perfect world, even touch any of us. And so I've been kind of forced to learn from things, whether I want to or not. Logan doesn't have that luxury. You know, Logan, well, I don't have that luxury. Logan does. He has the luxury of, like, Logan has the luxury of living in a beautiful, glowing, Glinda the Good Witch style bubble, where everything's fun all the time, and if it's not fun, it's really easy to get rid of. And so he hasn't really been forced to learn anything. And it's just, oh, it's frustrating. Where am I going with this? My point is that Logan is making a documentary about his experience seeing the dead body of someone who just committed suicide. This is a person who has never experienced this before, who has no idea what this is like, and he's seeing it for the first time. This documentary, especially with the PSA he posted earlier this year, could potentially be something about suicide. It could be focused on the victim, it could be focused on Aokigahara, which is the suicide forest, it could be focused on those kinds of efforts, but instead, he's focusing it on himself. And that's been so frustrating to me, watching that kind of mentality unfold from the perspective that I'm in, because as somebody with mental health issues, as somebody who survived a suicide attempt, you know, we see too often where we only talk about mental health as far as it affects people who aren't mentally ill. I think it's important to talk about people who are affected by other people's mental illness. I think it's important to talk about what someone else's illness can do to the people around them. I think that's incredibly important and invaluable. But I think it's not any more important than letting us direct the conversation ourselves. And having people like Logan Paul, who have no realm of experience with this in power and able to lead the conversation about it, is frankly really disturbing. And it makes me upset for where our society is right now. You know, it makes me upset knowing that what I've been through is being broadcast to millions of people through the lens of someone who doesn't get it and will never get it and wants to make it all about himself. Meanwhile, my actual story and my actual voice doesn't get nearly the amount of views or reach that he does. You see how frustrating that is? Like, it's hard to explain. And I want right now to give a little open letter to Logan. He's not going to watch this, I know that. But I just want to say, Logan, I don't think you truly understand. Like, I don't think you've ever kind of comprehended this sort of pain in your life. Imagine the saddest, lowest point you've ever been at, and multiply it by about 1 million, probably 1 billion for someone like you. Let's just, facts are facts, America. You know, multiply it by a ton, and then you have the point where you are someone who wants to kill themselves. And you remember when you wanted to disappear from the internet for a month or 2 months because of this horrible incident, and you just hated yourself and felt so bad about it. Now imagine that that was so bad and you hated yourself so much that you didn't want to just disappear from the internet for a couple of days or a couple of months. You wanted to disappear from the world forever. Like, you genuinely wanted it. That's what it's like to be suicidal. And, you know, it's not wrong that Logan doesn't understand or comprehend that, because it's hard to unless you've been through it, and that's okay. What's aggravating is that he refuses to try. What's aggravating is that he doesn't care about the story of the man he saw hanging from a tree. He cares about his own story, and he cares about how it affects him. He cares about himself. Logan, if this really affected you the way you said it did, if you really, really cared, you would not be making a documentary about yourself right now. You'd understand that this whole incident is so much bigger than you, and that we as people who attempt suicide, and a lot of the time unfortunately succeed, we're real people. We're not just fuel for your documentary. We're not just fuel for your sensationalism or your exhibitionism. We're real people with actual stories. And if you took the time to get to know that man's story or speak to his family, if you took the time to understand why he did what he did, what was going on in his head, and what is his family feeling right now, then you might have a much different perception in the world than you do now. What you need is not to make yourself more sensational, or, I keep using that word, but it's accurate. What you need right now is not to make yourself more extreme and more maverick. What you need right now is to back away from that, realize that it's the thing that got you in trouble in the first place, ask yourself why it is getting you in trouble, and really take a good hard look at the shit that you're pulling, and understand that the lives you affected are not just the people who kind of don't like you anymore. The lives you affected are people like me, who are disturbed that you take our plights with such little sincerity, that you just don't seem to care enough to focus your energy on that. That my story, that man's story, all of our stories are just the backdrop to your story. What I've been through is genuinely hard and genuinely trying, and it's something that has affected me to this day. I have PTSD. I tried to kill myself in a bathtub. I haven't taken a bath in there in 6 months. I can't do it. And that kind of mental headspace, that kind of horrible, horrible experience only matters to you as a backdrop to your own very privileged experience. That's what's disturbing and what's frustrated to me, that I'm not a person, that my story doesn't matter nearly as much as you do. That man's story doesn't matter as much as yours does. And I'm sick of people with mental illnesses and all of us who face these kinds of things being told that our stories don't matter compared to all the other people out there who are normal. That our stories only matter if we are normal now. Or that our stories only matter if they're told by somebody else who is normal. Our voices need to be heard. We are the ones who need to be heading these conversations, not you. And I think that is the most... My computer's froze. I think that's sort of why I'm so frustrated about this, is because, like, Logan, this isn't something you take as lightly as you're taking it. This isn't just like an, oops, I messed up. This is a, oh shit, I messed up. That's what this is. And I want to tell my story as often as I can, because I remember when I left the hospital and I felt better, and a few months later, I finally caught up the courage to admit to people on the internet what had happened to me. And I decided that I wanted to tell my story as often as I could because I wanted to inspire and help other people that might need to hear it. And I wanted to get it off my own chest as well. And it's genuinely helped me so much because reaching out is the best thing you can do. And seeing somebody like you who has been through, who saw suicide in January like I did, but saw it from a different perspective, and seeing the way that you tell the story really pisses me off, frankly. It's telling me that my story doesn't matter, only yours does. That my issues don't matter unless they serve to make you more famous. My issues don't matter unless I'm just talking in circles, and I'm getting so frustrated. And by the way, I don't want this to seem in any way like we should not let the people affected by somebody else's suicide have a voice. Like, God, that's not what I'm saying. You know, suicide survivors, I've watched interviews and things like that, and I think their stories are so incredibly valuable because they help me a lot, and you know, it helps me knowing that, like, if I were to go, somebody would really genuinely miss me and feel this way, you know? And I think that hearing stories from people who are suicide survivors, who've seen suicide attempts, who have witnessed these things, but not necessarily been there themselves, is invaluable, because those are the kind of people we need to be preaching to, or the people who don't know what this is like and need to learn. And so I think it's cool to see people who have grieved or who have been affected by mental illness of a family member or a friend talk about their experiences from the outside. I think that's really valuable and it's really cool. I think especially when it's the voice of somebody like you, Logan, who is quite ignorant and not necessarily willing to learn. I don't think that you should be talking about this situation from your perspective. I really don't think this should be about you at all. This documentary should not be focused on you literally at all. This should be a documentary about Aoki Ohara. This should be a documentary about suicide attempt survivors. If you even make a documentary at all, by the way, because that's just a PR move, no matter how you slice it. And you're not being genuine, you're not being sincere, you're just trying to fix your reputation. And it's insulting to somebody like me who actually went through suicide in January and is trying so hard to recover from it and share my story about it, to see somebody who witnessed suicide in January, who is not taking the time to learn from it, who is only concerned about how it affects them. And it's just not cool, man. It's not a good look, you know? It's not a good look. I'm just sick of telling mentally ill, broken people that we can't tell our stories. Logan has millions of YouTube views even after this thing that's happened to him. He has millions of subscribers. YouTube put his video on trending. Do you know what they did to me? They've demonetized all my stuff because it's too uncomfortable. So that's not cool. So because I know this video is either going to get demonetized or not get enough views, I don't know if I really can donate the proceeds to a suicide prevention service and make a difference. If this video does end up making a ton of money and a ton of views, which it probably won't, then I will definitely, whatever money this video makes at all, I will donate. But I am also going to add a little thing in the information box, which is like here, I believe, up here-ish. Yeah, that. And I'm going to include a link to a place where you guys watching can donate yourselves. Just like $1, like 50 cents helps so much. And I also want to just close by saying I don't mean to offend anyone, and I understand that my opinions are just opinions, that my perception is just my perception, and it might not necessarily be reflective of everybody's objective reality. But at the same time, I think there is something to be said for my reality. I think there is something to be said for how I feel as a suicide attempt survivor versus how somebody like Logan feels, who clearly doesn't view suicide with serious enough a lens and only wants to use it to fuel his own popularity. I think it's disgusting, and especially from my perspective, it's disgusting. I just want him to understand that what he did was wrong. And I want him to know that my story is not supposed to be a backdrop to his. And none of our stories should ever be a backdrop to anybody's. Our stories need to be our own. people with mental illnesses and disabilities, we need to be able to use our own voices and speak up for ourselves because, damn it, we can. And we shouldn't let people like Logan deter us from believing that the world cares. If anything, it's really cool to see that most of the world really hates Logan. It's just a very loud minority in the corner of the internet that still supports him. However, that minority is still quite influential. It includes YouTube, who's still supporting him somehow. It includes the millions of people that watch him, and so it is still frustrating. But it's at least good to see that most rational people in the world seem to feel this way, too. And that's encouraging. And I just want Logan to finally understand why. That it's not a bad thing because people don't like you anymore. What we want to see isn't your redemption story because you're so great and look how far you can come. What we want to see is you being sensitive to these issues and you understanding. And I think, Logan, if you can open up a dialogue like that, if you can take a step back and understand that the world doesn't revolve around you for a hot second, then maybe we can actually have a good conversation and you can change as a person. And then people will genuinely like you for all the right reasons. You'll get press for the right reasons. And you won't have to keep doing these things to fix your reputation if you just don't do bad things. Like, anyway, I don't know kind of what the point was with this video. I just have a lot of feelings that I needed to get out. And I'm so proud of myself that I wasn't angry. I wanted to yell and be angry, but I'm really glad that I was able to keep my cool. If you guys like this video, again, I have other videos to support people who are going through bad situations. If you want to hear my story, if you want to know, what you can do to help somebody else going through the same thing, or how you can reach out for help yourself, obviously links are in the description below for any resources that you might need. And I have other videos about what you can do and about my story. Our stories are the ones that need to be heard and not Logan's, and that's the bottom line. Thank you guys for watching, as always. I love my tender lumplings everywhere. Stay safe, stay kind, and always be open to having a dialogue with one another and learning and accepting each other. Again, I love you all, and I'll see you in my next video, which will hopefully be a little bit less of a downer. It'll be more fun and funny in nature, I promise. Anyway, see you guys later. Bye-nie. Oh, I'm out of frame. Okay, bye-nie.